So apparently I didn't learn my lesson from last year and wait until after I saw the movie to get the shirt. Halloween Ends is the 13th installment in the Halloween series, and it is the finale of this sequel trilogy, the third sequel trilogy. Real quick, Halloween 2018 I really liked. I thought it was a pretty faithful sequel, very simple, back to basics. Halloween Kills I didn't like a lot. I thought some things in it were really cool. Michael was great. The kills were great. All the flashback scenes set in the 70s were great. But the message of just paranoia and fear, I thought was too forced. And that's what stopped that movie from being fun. But still, I'm a big fan of this series, and I was really excited for this new movie. And my initial thoughts were, after I saw it, I thought, oh, people are really gonna hate this movie because it doesn't feel like a slasher movie at all. It doesn't feel like any of the other Halloween movies, and I thought people were just gonna rip it apart. So in this movie, we meet a new character named Corey Cunningham, who is ostracized by the town of Haddonfield because one Halloween night he was babysitting a kid. There was an accident that resulted in the kid dying, and it made it look like Corey killed the kid, even though it was a total accident. One day he's being picked on. Laurie comes to his aid. She helps him out, and that's how he meets Allison. They start becoming friends, kind of start a relationship, and for the first time, Corey is starting to feel normal. That now he's having a relationship with Allison, but it isn't enough. He wants revenge for the way the town treated him, how they turned on him, and he tries to persuade Allison to join him, seeing as they were both kind of victimized by the town of Haddonfield. The whole movie plays like an 80s movie. Not necessarily a good 80s movie, just it feels like something that would have come out in the 80s. It has more in common with something like Heathers or Trick or Treat, the 1986 movie. It has more in common with those than with any of the other Halloween movies. It's all focused around Corey, and Corey is a good character. I think he's a well-written character. The actor did a great job. He's a very tragic character where you know where he's coming from, and you do want him to get his revenge. You ultimately understand what it is that drives him to do what he does in this movie, and you do kind of root for him. You want him to get his revenge, and that's really only something you could have gotten away in the 80s. I was liking the movie for the most part. I was enjoying it, maybe not for the right reasons, but I was liking it. I like that it still kept the theme that we've seen in the past Halloween movies going of dealing with trauma. Some people can deal with it and move on. Other people uh, really struggle with it and kind of need an outlet just to be angry. And the movie still shows how, even though Michael Myers is supposedly gone, he's still affecting the town of Haddonfield. I respect that they wanted to try something new. The filmmakers wanted to try something new with this movie, and I didn't mind it. I thought it was very interesting. It didn't piss me off the way Halloween Kills did, but the movie did disappoint me a little bit because the Corey story is not well balanced with the Michael Myers and Laurie Strode story. And that's kind of the problem, is that this is billed as the epic finale, the conclusion to Michael and Laurie, and you don't get that. The movie's been out for 2 weeks, so I'm going to jump into spoilers. Uh, Michael isn't in this movie a lot. I'm sure everybody has mentioned that. Corey finds him in the sewers, and he kind of has this connection with him, and that's after meeting him, that's where he gets the idea to go out for revenge, and now he becomes the killer. And he returns to the sewer to retrieve the mask. He fights Michael and actually gets the mask away from him. And I know Michael's old, but like, this doesn't feel like the same Michael we saw in the last two movies. I know it's been a few years in between, but still, it was... Really? Like, really, Michael? You're gonna let him treat you like that? Did evil really die that night? Is there anything of the real Michael Myers left? Corey takes the mask, and now he goes after the people that bullied him. He goes after revenge, and that's the last half of this movie is when it does feel more like a slasher movie. With great kills. I think everybody who dies really deserved it. But for me, I feel like in these kinds of movies, it should always be Michael who does the killings. It isn't until the last, like, 15 minutes where Michael and Laurie meet up again. And the fight is maybe, like, 5 minutes. And then there's 10 minutes of this, like, they effectively kill him. But then they strap his body to the hood of a car, drive around town, everybody, like, comes, gathers around the car, and they go to a junkyard to dispose of his body. They throw his body into this, like, grinder thing. And I know what they were going for. They were trying to give it this triumphant feel, that this town can now rest in peace. They can rest easy that Michael Myers is gone. I know they were going for that, but it never felt earned, because 80% of this movie is following Corey. 10% is Laurie, 5% is Allison, and then, Michael is another 5%. It just didn't feel balanced. Overall, I still kind of like the movie. I think it's a mixed bag for sure. I really like the original story. I like the new direction it was going in. It was interesting. And, it still kept the same theme. I appreciated all of that. I appreciate the style of it. But the main thing was, it was hyped up as the end, the epic conclusion, the final fight, and that wasn't really what we got. That's the part that fell flat. And I know people are going to hate that. People have already made that very clear. However, I think once the hype dies down, people are going to come back to this movie, and I think it's going to get a cult following. In, like, the next few years, I wouldn't be surprised. If somebody says that they hated this movie, I could totally see why. If someone said they really liked this movie, I could totally see why. Because I'm also, like, in the middle of that. If you saw the videos I did last year, I was with my friend Gabby. I was showing her all the Halloween movies. She didn't like any of them. I think she liked one of them, and even that one I don't think she liked. I think she just thought it was okay. But after I walked out of this movie, I texted her. I was like, hey, I just saw Halloween Ends. And she's like, oh, great. I'm not watching it. And I'm like, I know. And she asked, did it in fact end? And I was like, poorly, but yeah. Her problem with those movies were that they were very repetitive. And I think this movie, for the majority of it, felt very fresh and new. So maybe I'm holding out hope. Maybe in the future she'll want to watch it, so fingers crossed. But I was also talking to another friend of mine who is a horror fan, loves the Halloween movies, didn't like Kills, but loved this one. And she felt more positive about it than I did. And we were talking how originally it was supposed to be 2 parts. It was Halloween 2018 and a sequel. And that got split into 2 movies. And they were going to be filmed back to back, and they ultimately didn't do that. But Kills and Ends were going to be filmed back to back in 2019. And we started thinking, like, what if they stuck with that? And when they were editing the 2 movies, they could kind of mix and match parts of it, What if Michael did die at the end of Kills, and Ends could have been its own standalone sequel? Or what if Michael died in the middle of Ends, and then the last half could be about Corey becoming the new killer? And it keeps in tone, it still ties in with what Laurie was talking about in this movie, of just like, evil never dies, it just changes shape. which I thought was kind of corny, but the more I think about it, I was like, yeah, it's a good line. You know, that's what this talks about. Like, it ends this chapter, but, you know, evil will always come back in many ways. You know, those were just some things we were thinking about. Would have been interesting to see. Overall, you know, I still think it's okay. It's definitely going to be the black sheep of the bunch. That's it. Those are my thoughts. Halloween ends. Is the end. It's over for now. Give it a few years. They'll bring it back eventually. Maybe now they could finish the Jamie Lloyd story. I know Danielle Harris has been wanting to end like her story. The whole series is kind of like mix and match. So it's like, hey, follow 4 and 5. Imagine that 6 never happened, and then work from 5. Just tune in. Laurie's story is done, so tune into Jamie Lloyd's story. See like what she's been up to the past few years. There are 13 Halloween movies to pick from. Watch the ones you like. Do a double feature. Do a double feature with the original and the 2018 one. I think those are makes it nice. Makes it like simple, easy. Wraps up nicely. It's Halloween. Everybody's entitled to a good scary movie. My God.